not on my Torah. That's not on my Torah either.
It's not.
It's not.
You got to do something about that. It's a whole.
It's all on Zoom. The videos are all on Zoom. Right. It should be a message later. I think they're also on Zoom because it's
You know what?
Yeah, it's on Zoom. That's
I see, but I don't look at it. I just realized I didn't see the job. I'm not the most little bit this.
Wow. Rabbi, that's the one thing Rabbi fills up.
The drush side, they're hard to miss. I try to, if I get it, I try to say, like, I put out a voice note so I don't forget them later on. What's your name?
Shimon Souls.
That's an Abrams.
Good, yeah. Now, there's one listener on today. This morning, I'm
making my way through. I'm a little bit of a
Which sefer is that?
I just listened to a few minutes of the Shiur from like 1995. After 2000, whatever, it was very good. He didn't change it as well.
It sounds, it looks like okay. From the rest of her, there's Mashiach's Nefesh. Sort of Kivek. He has a parish on it. So they're doing that. Do you want one also? Yeah. Yeah, have one.
all right. Okay, we're ready. Even one person is on this one. So what?
Thank the Parnes HaShana again, sponsoring the Shiur, לעילוי נשמת, גדליה ben Shimon, Shamshat, Nalia, and
I think there's another one underneath there. Pretty sure.
It says what? Hayom, it's last week.
Oh, that was last week? All right.
Yeah.
I'll take care of it. Okay, just go ahead. They don't want to over-announce. No over-announce. Yeah.
Okay. We're by Darkecha, Bitachon, learning the Maimer on Bitachon, on page Reish Pei Dalet. The Avodah of Bitachon. On the left column, on page Reish Pei Dalet, left side, K'moshe Amar Chazal, second paragraph. On the left side of Reish Pei Dalet, where it says, K'moshe Amar Chazal, Ein Adam Noikev Etzbo Lamata, Elam Ken Machviz Nolav Milamalo. It's a famous Maimer Chazal, one of the hardest to live with, to live by, but Chazal say that a person doesn't even nick his finger, doesn't even hurt his little pinky. Lamata in this world, Elim Kein Machviz Nolav Milamala, unless it was declared above, unless it was determined above that he's going to nick his finger. Doesn't happen. V'chaim v'amavis hem ach v'rak b'yad Hashem Yisborach. Chaim v'amavis, life and death, is completely in Hashem's hands. It's the only way that pachad can be taken away. It's not that. It's the only way to live without pachad. K'moshe kosav asher b'yodo nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'sar ish, asher b'yodo nefesh kol chai. Everything, all of life is in Hashem's hands. Ruach kol b'sar ish, everything's in Hashem's hands. V'yem yoyma ha'yetzer, and if the Yetzer says, "Hello, hitzlichu k'sas," what do you mean? But l'maisa, the Yetzer comes and says, "But l'maisa, we see that bad things happen." I mean, to have bitachon, everything's going to be good. We see that bad things happen. Unfortunately, we hear news and we see, and it's not always good. There are things that we see that the Rishoyim are matzliach for certain things. There are different things in the world that people are afraid of. Natural kinds of things that happen in life, sickness, lo aleinu, and so on. And then there's the Hatzlach of the Rishonim. And this is something that we see in Navi, we see throughout Tanakh and from the beginning of time. This is this David Melch throughout Tehillim was davening about that the Rishonim, we see the Rishonim have Hatzlach. So the Yitzhar comes and tells a person, "Halo hitzlichu k'tzas." We see that the Rishonim have some Hatzlach. Tana lo hitzlichu Rishonim lasos mashu. That's true, of course. The Rishonim are matzliach with certain things, but the response to the Yitzhar is, if the Rishonim are matzliach lasos, if they're matzliach Rishonim lasos mashu, so raki kach Hashem es baruch hu. It's only because that's exactly what Hashem wanted. It's not because the Rosh was able to go against the will of Hashem. I was able to shoot that person, was able to hurt that person. It's Kach Hashem's Baruch Hu. It's Hashem's Baruch Hu's will. What's it? Kach Hashem's Baruch Hu. Adrab bezehu garm lahem lachshav shehem machlitim. Adrab, the Rishonim with any haslacha that they have, they become more inflated. The ego becomes more inflated, and they think more and more that the fate of Am Yisrael, the fate of a Jew, is in their hands. Lahagber is gavasam. The gaiva becomes stronger and stronger. V'davka b'glal zeh, as it says in Pasuk B'Hadesa, that dafka because of that gaiva, that ascent, so to speak, in themselves, that they think of themselves as being the ones who are the cause of this. That brings to their absolute and utter destruction, ultimately to their destruction. Because the truth is that they don't have any real koach to cause any damage. Everything is b'hashgacha meduyakis. There's so many stories that we've been hearing over these past few months of remarkable hashgacha, that those who zeicha to be saved with the remarkable hashgacha, and there are sad stories. Everything is according to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan. But the Rishonim have the choice to imagine this. To delude themselves into thinking Kil is a nasa al yodam. Kil was done by themselves. And in the end, the Rishonim are going to fall into the pit. Or they're going to fall into the hole, into the pit that they dug for others. In the end, it's going to be good. Davke from what appears to be a sakana, a danger, and in many ways it seems to be a hopeless situation. In the end, as it's always been, the Rishonim are destroyed and Am Yisrael is menatzayach. That doesn't mean that along the way there's not going to be damage and pain and so on. A person has to constantly review this and to think about this. That it's impossible for one person to hurt another person in any way. It can only happen with Hashgachas Hashem. Ki rak kocho hu hakol. Ulahamik b'zeh, and to think about this deeply. Ad she'amuna tiyeh chaya b'libo lo yifached miklum. Till the emunah becomes very, very strong, lo yifached miklum, and he won't be afraid of anything. Of course, that doesn't resolve the other issue that comes as a result of human suffering. That's not what we're talking about now. So a person believes that everything is a hashgachas Hashem. A person has complete emunah, and he's not afraid because he knows that benkach hu benkach. It's not up to any other of the things in the world to determine what's going to be with them. So that can help to take away the fear. But the other problem of suffering is that, of course, the feeling that if this difficulty, of this suffering, of this sorrow is coming from Hashem, then why? That's not what we're talking about. Why did he do this to me? In other words, why did he allow the Russia to kill my son? Why did Hashem allow it? Since one is a good friend, allows such things to happen. A good friend protects. Good friends protect each other. And Adrab, if Hashem is mashgiach every single thing, and a person can't even hurt his little pinky unless it's mashgiach Hashem, so there are a lot more than little pinkies that are hurting. It means that people are. This is the pain of the world comes more from, not from a lack of belief that everything comes from Hashem. That's where fear comes from. But there's something else that's called disappointment, and that's not. We're not learning that sugi right now. But that's really the main source of pain when it comes to people who ma'aminim, the disappointment. Why did this happen? Why didn't you protect me? Why did you allow this Russia to do this? Where is it coming from? The fact is that because it's coming from you, that hurts. If it was just coming from a Russia, I understand the Rishayim are out to get me. But it's not just coming from a Russia. Not just. It doesn't come from the Russia. It comes from you. And that's what hurts me most. So that's not an issue of pain. That's of fear. That's an issue of disappointment and of letdown and of the feeling that so many people have of being abandoned, and so on. So that's something else. That's of course a whole different discussion. But as far as pachad is concerned, fear is concerned, and living in that place of pachad, everything. Not afraid of anything.
And not just transfer the fear to Hashem. I'm not afraid of the Russia. But if I have things from Hashem, I'm afraid that Hashem's going to do something bad.
Yeah. So what happens? What happens as it's true. But what happens as a result of that is that when a person lives in a state of fear, so oftentimes you begin to detest the one that you're afraid of. It's a very common reaction to being afraid. So when Yiras Hashem is not properly understood, or it's in an unhealthy way, it causes a lot of trouble, causes a lot of pain, a lot of problems, and a lot of running away from him. The natural t'nuah movement of a person who's afraid is to go away from. When you love, you go towards. When you're afraid, you run away. So in the parasha we have we have Shifra and Pur, the Mialdois ha'ivrios, and there it says Vaterena Mialdois ha'selukim, that they feared Hashem, and they didn't listen to power, but Techayena se'yeladim, and they gave life to the children. So that's a hard thing to do. That through the emotion of fear that comes chiyas. That those two by nature are clashing with each other. Yira and chiyas, when a person is afraid, it takes away chiyas. Here, not only did the women themselves that they had such yiras Hashem, but they were able to give chiyas to other Jews. They were able to give life to other Jews. So their emesis, that when a person's yiras Shamayim is real and is healthy and is coming from the right place and is lived in the right way, then it does cause a chiyas. But that's a hard thing to do. You know, what's healthy yiras Shamayim? What's healthy yiras Shamayim? I'm not going to go into that right now. That's a separate mimer. We'll talk about it. The Bilvavi has some very important mamarim on that Indian of how to experience the Yiras Shamayim what does it mean, Yiras Shamayim? And that it should not take away your chiyas. That Yiras Shamayim should infuse you with more and more chiyas. Yosef HaTzadik is like Kim Ani Yoreh. So the Kim Yoreh, he didn't say that when he was running away. That gave him more of a connection to Hashem. But what's happening with this misunderstanding of fear is that it's when it's not taught properly and it's misunderstood, then it takes people away from Hashem. Yes, sure.
Rabbi mentioned about people are disappointed and that how did Hashem allow this to happen? Is it that Hashem allows it to happen, or Hashem actually wants that very atrocity to happen? Or does he just allow the Rishon to free reign?
No, it means that it's like we said the words Tachnit HaElokit. It means Hashem has a plan.
So Hashem wants the babies to be beheaded.
Yes.
And so on.
And that's a very hard
It's more
sentence.
difficult to...
It's a very hard, yeah. It's a very, very, it's unpleasant to say those things. But that has to be. Which doesn't, like just the same way that Hashem wanted us to go through the Avdas of Mitzrayim, which does not take away the punishment from Paro, which is what the Rambam and all the Rishon talk about. Why is Paro punished if Hashem wanted? Hashem wanted the Galus of Mitzrayim. Hashem wanted the October 7th, and Hashem wanted the Milchama 75, 80 years ago. Hashem wanted Auschwitz and Treblinka. Hashem wanted it. And it's hard to say those words because since when does somebody that loves you want something that hurts you so much? So that's the cave of the world. That's the greatest pain that the world has. That's the truth. That Russia, which doesn't take away any of the punishment of those Rishonim from Shmini Atzeres or from the Milcham, doesn't take away any of the punishment. Why is it that they wanted to be Kalim for such a thing? But it was Hashem's will, and therefore those who Lo Aleinu have gone through such things, if they're maminim and they're strong, they're mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it doesn't take away their emunah. And we see this by. You see it's an interesting thing that how even in this kufa that we're in, that collectively as a people, the tzaros are making us bigger, mamina. You would say they're just the opposite, but that's individually that happens to people. And the Sfam talk about this, that when a person's emunah is not to begin with the way that it should be. So, like I mentioned in the past that my mother came from a very large family. Most of them were killed. The ones that were survived, there were different levels of how they kept, and they didn't keep Yiddishkeit. So I had one aunt who I was particularly fond of, who she dropped everything after the war. She dropped everything, and she ate tarfus, and she didn't keep Shabbos. And I loved her very much. She was a wonderful, wonderful person, and she died many years ago. But she lived in Chulon, and she was a wonderful, kind person, and so I used to have these arguments with her about Yiddishkeit, which. Parents were not happy about. I was a big kanoi, and I used to have arguments with her. I once shared with you a story about her. It was a remarkable story with her. So she fasted on Yom Kippur. She did fast on Yom Kippur, and that was my father had asked me and said to me, don't talk to her about Yiddishkeit. Just love her for who she is, and don't start with her. Leave her alone, because she would get very angry. She got very angry about it, and I got into this whole fight with her about something with Yiddishkeit, and she used to get upset about my tzitzis were out, and everything bothered her with Yiddishkeit. She wasn't neutral. It bothered her, everything with Yiddishkeit, and I was arguing with her, I actually, I asked her, "Do you fast on Yom Kippur?" And she went crazy. She started like crying. And she went crazy. And she started yelling at me, "What do you know? What did you ever live in your life? You think you're somebody? You're nobody. You're a little yeshiva bacher. You don't know a thing." And it was very, very terrible. It really upset her. And my parents found out about it. She spoke to my parents about it. My father was so upset with me. And my father said, "Yeah, my father said that you don't, she does fast Yom Kippur." And because I was taunting her. I remember I was at the time I was maybe 14 or something, and I was taunting her. I said, "Oh, so if you fast on Yom Kippur, so it means you do believe. So then if you do believe, then why?" I was giving her this kind of stuff. And I had these fantastic arguments that I built up, that I worked on to torture a survivor of Auschwitz. She didn't only survive Auschwitz; she was the one that took care of my mother in Auschwitz. She was the one that saved my mother's life, and other people too. She saved. She was able to. She had a job in the kitchen, and she risked her life 10 times a day, taking a potato peel. Whatever she did, and all other stories that we have from her. But my mother told me, listen. They called her Kuka, and Kuka. Her name was Kuka. Her name was Rus, but they called her. So she said that she really wasn't from before the war either. She wasn't Shemeres Mitzvah before the war. I mean, she kept things because of the family, and and where they were, and she kept things, but she really wasn't a person that was keeping things before. But there's a point of her emunah when you reach the edge of who she is and who she was, where of course Hashem's baruch is there, and that's how it is with many Jews, and many Jews, Jews people. But what the tzaddikim say in this farm is that there are people that you see that as a result of tsaros, that they go away from Yiddishkeit, and the tzaddikim spoke about this. It's the Alter Rebbe's yard site now, and Alter Rebbe the tzaddikim spoke about this. How it doesn't necessarily mean that their emunah was in the right place before they went through the tzara. The tzaddikim say that the tsaros don't take away a person's emunah. If a person has certain issues with emunah, the tsaros can cause terrible, can cause more damage in how the person is living their Yiddishkeit. But a person whose emunah is there, so the tsaros don't take away. And after all, we see that as a people, again, there's no study that's being made, and all we know is from things that we hear and stories. But it could be that in certain ways the emunah becomes stronger. It brings out certain feelings of emunah. So don't know that suffering, that sorrows is the cause of a loss of faith. It's been a question from the beginning of time. But the feeling of a person that a person who's a mammon has that please HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please help, and not to be let down. That's something we see that, for instance, in the Aish Kodesh, is talking about all the time. The tzaddikim were talking about it all the time. But once the Maisa happens, if something happens, then when a person's emunah is strong, everything should be good for everybody, but a person's emunah is strong, it doesn't take away their emunah. It doesn't take away their emunah. But here we're talking about pachad, about being afraid. And when a person lives with strong emunah, he's unafraid. Le'yafachem miklum. Page Reish Pei. V'yidei zeh t'shaber haklipa b'mheira. V'nizke b'mheira l'kima posuk amolo es deis es Hashem k'mayim liyam mechasim. And through that strengthening of emunah and belief that everything comes from Him, it should be a molar deis Hashem. Should be zoichet to see Yeshua v'hoya Hashem melech ha'kol b'yom hoya Hashem echad v'shmei echad. V'nimidas ha'pachad. So he explains that midas ha'pachad, this midah of being afraid, Midas HaPachad. Shorsh of Midas HaGvura. The Midah of Yira, of Pachad, comes from Gvura, from the Midah of Gvura. Now we think normally Pachad, being afraid, is the opposite of Gvura. Gvura we associate with strength. And Pachad is a weakness. So what's the connection between, but Yira, Pachad comes from the Midah of Gvura. So like all of the spheres and all of the Midas, there's the Midah of Gvura and Kedusha, which is strength, and all that's positive in the Midah of Gvura, and then there's the Klipa of the Midah of Gvura. And it's interesting because the Klipa of that Midah of Gvura, the way it comes out in a person's life is just the opposite. It's because the person thinks that because the strength and how he views strength is not that's coming from Hashem. His view of strength is what's coming the strength of human beings. It was Gvura without Elokus. It causes terrible pachad. Because then the whole world could be anything, then it's a matter of statistics. So you listen to the news, and the news will say that and now they're coming also from Hezbollah, the Rishayim from the north, from Lebanon are coming, and they're coming from the south, and then so all the Pachdonim are taking out from that matzav that the news that the reporters are describing, and of course most of them are wishing for, that they take out from those reports a pachad. And as the koiches of evil are being misgaber. So they're falling into a place of gevura, of yira, which is tamei. A yira tmeya, a gevura from the klipa. That there's a his gabrus in the world, there's a gevura, and instead of connecting to the gevura, yitzad kedusha, which fills a person with emunah and with bitachon, instead, because this individual is not bottled to the mitzvahs of Hashem Yisbarach, is not bottled to that reality of Hashem Hu Elokim. So then the gevura is a gevura of the klipa, and it has the opposite effect. It generates fear. It doesn't take away fear. It causes more and more fear. So that's what he's explaining. Because this person defines gevura as military strength. You know, if our military capabilities are up to par, then I'm not afraid. If I'm strong enough to fight against this enemy that I have, so then I'm not afraid, or I'm strong, because I have the ability to defeat the enemy. So then the person's okay. But if it looks to the person that the enemy is stronger, and I don't have the strength, since the whole issue of gevura depends on me. So if my gevura is not where it should be, then I'm terrified. I'm afraid. A person could be terrified of a mouse. You know, you could start jumping on the table and running out of your house in your pajamas because there's a little tiny thing that's dragging around. It's a pachad. So, if gevura if your gevura is depends upon that mitzias of can I be victorious in this matzah, so then you could be afraid of anything. Whatever you think, whatever that person thinks the mouse can do to him or to her, you could be afraid of anything. But when a person's gevura is a gevura of kedusha, it comes from a bittul to Hashem. It comes from that surrender to Kodesh Baruch Hu. So it says sha'adam chashuv she'esh lo mitzias, or gevura la'atzma. When you look at that you yourself as a Metzias, and the Gevura is a matter of your own Gevura. It's your own Gevura. Since your Gevura is measured by, there's like a bully in the class, who's stronger, me or the bully? So when it's that equation, then you're constantly making those, who's stronger? What do the statistics say about, COVID in Nassau County? Every day with the things. What do the statistics say? Is there what they call a spike? You remember that word spike?
Mm-hmm.
That word spike in. So that was, they were always saying there's a spike in COVID. And then all the pachdonim go under the table, and they put on their triple masks, and they go under the table, and they're trembling and shaking under the table. Because today it sounds like COVID is stronger than in Nassau County, and especially if you live in Woodmere, and then they hear that, and the person's filled with pachad. Since you're not bottled to Hashem, so the enemy is not bottled to Hashem. Is a Metzias. Everything follows according to the rules of nature, those laws of nature and statistics, and everything is a Metzias that's separated from Elokus, from God. You're separated from Elokus, and the enemy is separated from Elokus. So we're talking about like statistics. Or if this guy's a heavyweight boxing champion and you're only a lightweight boxing champion, it's better not to get into the ring with him, because you're going to lose. So when everything follows that mahalach of teva, so there's pachad. It's a terrible pachad. Melanoitzer etzla hapachad. I'm a Metzias. The enemy is a Metzias. Which Metzias is stronger? The strong Metzias. The history has proven, statistics show, that the stronger Metzias will win. Of course, our existence proves the opposite, because as far as armies and strength and so on, our Metzias is not dependent upon that throughout all of time, and all the strongest Metzias that ever existed are all gone, and we're still here. But the person feels a pachad. Because maybe the Metzias of the other one, whether it's a person, or whether it's a sickness, a statistic, that Metzias, tis Gabra al Metzias Shalom, is going to be stronger than my Metzias. That other Metzias is stronger than my Metzias. That's the Gevura. That's the Gevura of the Klippa. That Yira, fear, Gevura of Klippa. It's a very scary Metzias. That's where your life depends upon statistics, and your life depends upon whether or not you have you feel that you have the strength to overcome this or to overcome that, and that's where pachad comes from. That klipa gevura. L'chein yesh anashim shemiskashim lo lefachei. Therefore, for many people, it's hard for them not to be afraid. Av shehem yodim sh'Hashem yisborach mahav hakol. Even though they know in their heads, intellectually, they believe that everything comes from Hashem. Ve'ein shum metzias beladov, and there's no metzias other than Hashem. Nothing can be without Hashem. Everything's Hashem. V'yodim es gevurosov v'kocho, and they know that Hashem is stronger. They know that Hashem is stronger than the enemy. Again, whether it's Hamas or it's COVID, they know that Hashem is stronger. There's godel chulsha sa'adam. Vatam b'zeh, and that Hashem is stronger than any human being. But vatam b'zehu, kim rotzon l'chios es emuna, because these people who are afraid, they want to live a life of emuna, rak al tzad hasheni, but only what he calls al tzad hasheni, which is what the hainu, la'agish hasheni shemafchidosi, who ein lo metzias. This is how they want to live. They want that there should be no Hamas in the world. There should be no mouse in the house. There should be no Hamas in the world. Anything that is scary should not have mitzias. I should have mitzias, but everything else that frightens me, that shasheni shemafchidosi, who ain't no mitzias. Now the problem, he says, is lo zochrim lachshov kach gamal atzman. The problem is as follows: that you can't divide this in two. It can't be that you try to the Mamin tries to think that the enemy has no mitzias, everything is Hashem. Whether it's a mouse, or whether it's an Arab, or it's a disease, try to think that everything is from Hashem, and this can't hurt me because everything's from Hashem, and it's only up to Hashem whether I'm going to get hurt by this sickness or by the enemy. It's everything up to Hashem, which is correct, and that's a very good, healthy way of thinking. That it has no mitzias. The mouse has no mitzias. It's Hashem. The enemy has no mitzias. It's Hashem. That's true. The problem is that narrative is unconvincing in the life of a person who always lives with his own mitzias. So he's trying to make what we call in learning, palgina dibura. He's trying to divide this into two. He wants that the Russia shouldn't exist, but when it comes to his taivas and what he wants in this world, and his own mitzias, he does exist very strongly, and he's the center of everything that exists is himself. So the problem is, you want to be a mammon when it comes to Hamas and the mouse or COVID, just the examples. But when it comes to his his way of living and his own mitzias, he's not mevatel himself. He's not mevatel himself. So that's what he's saying. He says he wants lichis samun rak al tzad hasheni dahainu lahargish hasheni shemavchidosi hu ein lo mitzias. So he wants to think that the scary thing has no mitzias. Everything's Hashem. There's no mitzias. Everything's Hashem. That's why that same person can tell other people not to be afraid. But when it comes to their own lives, if it comes into their own lives, so then they're terrified, because theoretically they believe everything's from Hashem, and therefore they could tell other people not to be afraid, or they could make a phone call to somebody who lives in Eretz Yisrael and said that Hashem should be mechazik you and everything's in Hashem's hands. It's all going to be okay. And that same person, if they hear that there's a spike in COVID, they're already tearing kriya. So the person could call from Eretz Yisrael and say, "Look, I live 5 kilometers away from Gaza, and you gave me a phone call to tell me not to be afraid, and you spend every day with your head to the radio listening to hear what Fauci has to say. So like, why aren't you mischazik? You gave me chizik, why aren't you mischazik?" The teretz is, okay, listen, these are two different parachutes. I was telling you not to be afraid. And I was telling you that the evil has no mitzias, that Hamas can't harm you. Everything is in God's hands. But now there's a spike in COVID. And it says that it's in Nassau County. So the Malach HaMavis is walking around here. I heard the Malach HaMavis is on Broadway in Central Avenue, and they reported already 4 cases in the neighborhood, and it's in Fafal. Again, none of this has to do with taking proper precautions, not against Hamas, not against COVID. I always have to say that again and again and again, because there are always people that will take that the wrong way. Whatever you have to do to make a regular normal status, whatever is considered to be a normal status, I'm not going into that. But we're talking about the feeling of pachad. So you could talk about other people, not that there's no Metzias, there's only God. There's only the Vaishal, there's no Metzias, everything is Elokus, everything is Hashem. And therefore, you should know that Hamas has no Metzias. So you tell your nephew, go down in the tank and go into. You should know that Hashem is everything's alakus. Am Yisrael mefached. Am Yisrael mefached. And if you would only see how you're jumping on the table because there's a mouse that came into them, or you're going out of your kalim because of something that you know, like I used the example, you hurt yourself, you have something, and you'll go online and it says that that there are 2 people in the last 100 years that died from this, and you tell your wife, I think we have to start to make hachanas, how much life insurance we have. It's, because you have mitzias. So the fact that you try to strengthen yourself that Hamas has no mitzias and everything is elokus. But if your whole way of looking at yourself is from that perspective of yeshli mitzias, you can't divide. You can't have a half and half pagina dibur. We can't divide. Or the other nine. Either everything is elokus or it's not. If everything is, then it is. And then you're not afraid. You do what you have to, but you know that. But if it's not that everything's elokus, only for that person everything is elokus, or for that matziv everything is elokus. But when it comes to yourself, same thing when it comes to, let's say, person with a parnasa and with the economy and losing money. If you live in that mitzias of that's without bittul telokus, so then you're afraid, and your friend in Aish could say to you, you're afraid of losing a couple of dollars. You're afraid that you're gonna have to move from your nice house and maybe rent an apartment, somewhere else in a cheaper neighborhood. That's what you're afraid of. I'm afraid of my kid getting killed tonight. I'm afraid of my kid going. What, you're afraid of? Because pachad is that it's your own mitzias. It's your own mitzias, and if you're in that place where your own life you don't see as being completely everything has Hashem, so you could give all kinds of drushes and speeches and talks to give chizuk to other people. That doesn't take away your pachad. Doesn't take away your fear. Doesn't change your mitzias. Therefore, it doesn't work. Kitzarach lichios emuna ad hasof. Kitzarach lichios emuna ad hasof. That's a good sentence to remember. Ad hasof. Lichios emuna ad hasof. Ad hasof. Completely. A life of emuna. Not just for Yanim, that he shouldn't be afraid. It should be ad hasof. When it comes to fear of disease, when it comes to fear of economy, when it comes to all the everything, ad hasof. B'chol anyon, chen kol pam. Therefore, kol pam.
Amen.
Chen kol pam shemargish pachad. Therefore, any time that a person feels afraid, and he's thinking about that person that's scaring him, that's frightening him, and he tries to think the enemy doesn't have any koach mitzias. Everything is elokus, which is good. That's what we should think. But yakdim tchila lachshav kachal atzma. The first exercise in dealing with pachad is not the other, and how scary or not scary the other is. And it doesn't have a mitzias. It doesn't have a mitzias. You have to begin with yourself, within yourself. Yaktem tchil lachshov kachal atzmo, that you don't have a mitzias, only Hashem. Uksheyizka she'ein lo chaim atzmiyim. You can't breathe for a second. Forget about COVID or Hamas. You can't breathe for a second. On just this regular morning of life, where everything is just to get up, you can't say Moida Ani. There's nothing. It's be'emes hachazar be nishmasi and nothing. There's nothing. I'll call neshima every single breath. And to think about that yourself, that you don't have Chaim Atzmiyim. You don't have your own life. There is no life. Ela kol metziuso chiyus shel Hashem yisbarach. Your whole metzius is the chiyus, is the neshama, is the breath that Hashem breathes into you this second. As I bekal yiska gam lochush, then it will be easy for you then to feel that no one can take that away from you, because if it's not you, no one can take it away from you. They can only take you away from you if it's you, but if it's not you, they can't take it away from you. They can't take it away from you because it's not you. The pachad of it being taken from you is because of you, not just because of the strength of the other. It's because of you. But when it becomes clear to you that it's not you, then that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing. This madrega of feeling that there is no koach, that teva, nature, and other people, and all this stuff doesn't have any koach. He madrega shema tells us mitzias haklipis. This way of living is mevatel the klipis. It destroys the klipis. V'chosefes es ha'emes ha'lokish she'ba'olam, and it brings the emes of elokus. It reveals elokus in the world. Living this way reveals elokus in the world. V'hinei adam lo yochel lichiyos es hamadrega azos ba'agosha amitis. A person can't live on this madrega in a true way, in a real way. Calls man shebemaisav who came dovuk b'klipis. If in your own personal life you're dovuk b'klipis, you give credence to the klipis, and you're constantly worrying about the klipis, and you're connected to the klipis, and all different things and all different ways of looking at things. You can't feel this Bitachon in Hashem. You can't feel it, and you can't draw that or of Hashem into the world. Therefore, in order to connect to Hashem and to live a life of Bitachon, that's what it means by Shifra and Pura. But Teren Hamiyal is this Elokim. L'shama al v'tchayena es haYiladim. V'tchayena es haYiladim. It means yourself, not to be afraid of Paro, to be afraid of Hashem, and not to be afraid of Paro. Tzarech lechazik es hayir shamayim. L'snatek legamri me'asheker shel haklipos. And to detach yourself completely from the sheker of the klipos. Now, what that means is to really live a life of bitachon, and to be able to feel that bitachon in the face of everything in your life. You need to be in this place of bittul telukus, and bittul telukus means that you're also not giving in to the taivas of this world. All the giving into any taiva that is inappropriate means that you're kaireo mishtachva, you're worshiping your own mitzias. That's what it means to give into a taiva. To give into a taiva means that Hashem Yisbarach said that you shouldn't do this aveira. You shouldn't go after this taiva. So Hashem Yisbarach said. So why aren't you listening? You gave into the taiva. So the taiva, that taiva is stronger than the elokus in you, in your way of looking at things, and because of that, you're allowing your mitzias to take over. So we're talking about that. We started talking about last. We'll continue on this Sunday with by Yosef Atzadik. When paro, when chomer, when physical matter is shoylate over the tzura. So every taiva means that paro won. I mean, that's what a taiva is. Hashem said, "Don't look at that thing on the phone." And paro says, "Look at it." So the Taiva won. So Paro won. Hashem said not to look at it. And Paro said to look at it. So how's it possible that Paro won? So it's at the Hainu B'Cholin Yani Taivas. Shem Kol Davar Shein Shach LaShem Baruch V'Advekas Bo Kol Echad Lefi Inyana. If he godel is not Tchuso Me'aklipus, to the degree that a person is able to break away from that hold of Paro, Kach Yuchel Lechias Bemis is Amun. You can live a life of Chayenes HaYilona. And a person is able to live with the chiyas of Amunah. So not being afraid doesn't only mean not being afraid of Hamas, not being afraid of COVID. Not being afraid means I'm also not afraid of facing this next moment of my life without having that extra piece of kugel that's not good for me. And that's where we find out who the real Ma'aminim. Because if it's the Ratzon Hashem that you should, and you believe it's the Ratzon Hashem that you should live a certain way and eat a certain way, and it is not the right thing for you to do, that means that Hashem says don't eat it and Paro says to eat it. So it's going to be a big test tonight. It doesn't have to be Hamas or COVID. It could be a piece of kugel, a nice kosher piece of kugel, a very, very nice piece of kugel. But it's about your mitzias and satisfying your mitzias and building up your mitzias and the desire, your desires and your mitzias and your mitzias and your mitzias. Then it doesn't have to be Hamas. It could be a mouse. It could be a piece of kugel. Paro wins. You lose.
There's a famous Rosh Hashanah of FOMO, fear of missing out.
FOMO, yeah.
It's the party.
You wanted to be, everybody's at the party and you're afraid you missed out on the party. And they use the word, FOMO stands for fear.
Right, fear of missing out.
So that's just a thing. A fear of missing out. Right? And it's not, you're not even afraid of something, you're afraid of not having something. You're afraid that you missed out on something. Because it's all about you. Is that you wanted to have, you were hoping, you were anticipating a certain pleasure. My friends are having that pleasure now, whatever that is. They went on the Tiyul, or they went someplace, and they're having a masiba, and you're not there. It's anything in life. It's any type. Whenever Paro wins, it means that you're giving credence to a mitzias other than God. And whenever you give credence to the mitzias other than Elokus, then it could be fear of missing out or not having that piece of kugel. Who knows how good this kugel? What do you mean who knows how? You just had 4 pieces before. Who knows what I'm missing with this piece of kugel? Who knows what I'm missing? But you can't miss out. It's a fear of missing out. That there's something that's not b'shleimus. It's about your own mitzias. And when it's about your own mitzias, so Paro's winning, and then it's the opposite of a Tirena Hamiyaldis is Elikim, because there it says V'loy Shamu el Paro. They didn't listen to Paro. Lo osu kashadiba Paro. Remember it says Lo osu, right? They didn't do what Paro said. That's like Lo Sham said Lo osu kashitzi or whatever. I don't remember the post. They didn't do what Paro said. But the Chiyena say love. That's Chiyas. But if you do what Paro says, then there's no Chiyas. Then there you are, finishing off the kugel and feeling like a zlog. And losing. And now you're saying, I'm afraid my weight shows that the statistics show that people like me are going to die younger. That's a life without the locus. Okay.